Okay, this is a new take on our grammar videos. I'm here at WIT. I've got a whiteboard, and I've got one of our sentences from Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. The people who stand before kings may look like they did it all by themselves. Okay, getting a little bit more complicated now. And usually we start trying to figure out where the subject and where the verb is, but we actually have a problem here because we have several sets of subjects and verbs, right? We have, well, let's identify all the nouns. It could be subjects and then all the things that could be verbs. We have people, we have kings, we have they, we have it, we have themselves. And these all seem like they could be subjects of sentences, right? And then we have things that look like verbs. We have stand, we have may or may look, we have like. We don't know how like is being used. We have did, and I think that's it, okay? So this is a much more complicated sentence than some of the ones that we've been looking at so far, and that's because this is a complex sentence. You've probably heard the term simple sentence, and that's when you have just one set of subject and verb. I went to the store. That's a simple sentence, right? This is not simple at all, okay? If we take a look at it, we actually have three sets of subjects and verbs, so let's identify those. First, we'll find our main subject and our main verb. That's the verb and subject of the independent clause, okay? Every sentence has to have an independent clause. Without that, the sentence doesn't make any sense, right? We say it would not express a complete thought. So the complete thought is held here. So the people, red marker, may look, okay? This is our main subject and our main verb. But then we've got all of these other things. You can see that people and may look are separated by several words in the sentence. Once it's on two lines, they're right on top of each other, but they're not very close in the sentence. Then we have another verb, stand, right here. And it's not quite clear what that subject is, so we'll come back to that later. And then we have did, right? We'll go with a different color. We'll go blue. So did. And it's pretty clear we know who did it, right? They did. So this is our subject. This is a verb. Here's a verb. We go to green. Too many markers. And now what's our subject? Well, the subject of this part is actually who. Okay? So who is one of these words we call it a relative pronoun. And a relative pronoun can start what's called a dependent clause. Okay? And a dependent clause is different than an independent clause because it does not express a complete thought. If we look at this entire chunk here, who stand before kings? Well, technically, this is acting as a subject. This is acting as a verb, but it doesn't make sense. It does not express a complete thought, right? Same thing if we go down to our blue set. The blue set actually starts here, like they did it all by themselves. Now, they did it all by themselves makes sense. That's an independent clause. But we have this dependent marker word, or a subordinate conjunction. You don't really need to know these words, but I'm just telling you what they are. With this word in front, that means it no longer can stand by itself. Okay, so it's a part of the sentence, but the actual independent clause here is the people may look. And then we've got these other sets of subjects and verbs embedded in the sentence. Okay, so let's take a look. We have subject. This is a relative pronoun. Subject and verb. Now we've got before kings, and this should appear familiar now. These are what we call, this is a preposition, right? And we know by now that all prepositions have objects. And this is the object of the preposition, okay? And kings is a noun, it's a common noun. So the people who stand before kings. What is who stand before kings doing? What is it doing? Well, basically, this whole green chunk, if we want to call it that, this whole thing down that way, is describing people. The people, what people? So we can call this a dependent clause. We can also call it an adjective clause, okay? Because this whole thing is acting as an adjective describing the people. But instead of having a single adjective like tall, we have now a whole group of words that we call an adjective phrase. Now we've got another dependent clause down here, like they did it all by themselves. Like is our conjunction. You're probably familiar with conjunctions like and, but, or. Those are called coordinating conjunctions. These are subordinating conjunctions, okay? It means that this part is subordinate to this part. We can have a sentence that says, the people may look. It's not very interesting, but capital letter, if we throw a period here, we have a complete sentence. It expresses a complete thought, and we have all the things that we need. But with this word like over here, we do not express a complete thought. Like they did it all by themselves. Sorry if I'm blocking your view here. So, They may look like what? They did all by themselves. So we've identified our subject and verb. We actually have this as our direct object, right? They did. What did they do? They did it. So it is receiving the action of the verb did. They are doing the action. They're the subject. Receiving the action, that makes them the object. All adjective. And then by themselves. And here, basically the same thing. We have a preposition, by, and object of the preposition, themselves. The main clause of the sentence, however, is the people may look. And everything else inside the sentence is giving us more detail about the people and the looking. So this is a somewhat more complicated sentence. We would actually call it a complex sentence. I hope it makes sense.